Hello, everybody, and welcome to Teachers in the Dungeon. I'm Tom Gross.
And I'm Dan Ream, enjoying a beautiful day, and there's only a week left of school.
That is so nice, so nice. And the graduation parties galore.
Here, have some cake. Eat something.
Right. We don't want to take it. Yes, it gets a little crazy at this time of year, but the weather is not harming a thing. Not at all. Well, this is the day that we dive deep into the dungeons.
I'm going to have to stop you right there.
Okay.
Because I happen to know you didn't do your homework.
I didn't. It's the end of the school year, man. I'm not doing that work.
Your grade's locked in. You know you've got a cushion.
That's right.
You've calculated it down.
Yes, indeed. Well,
we've got something else that was kind of more timely and more kind of not more exciting, because what can be more exciting really than a dungeon, but something we were pretty excited about.
It involves people, and that's what's exciting about it.
Yes. Converts, potential devotees to our cult.
Well, I will say accolades on this one go all to you, because you were the spearhead of this and got it going, got the thing out there, got people to sign up. And what we're talking about is we played Dungeons and Dragons with our colleagues last night in a social setting outside of school. And not our normal group, but just teachers. We just threw an invitation out. That's right. So this all kind of goes back to January. And we've talked about this on the show before. We were asked by our principal to, they did a day of teachers teaching teachers, and it was a little bit, not so much shop, but just content. And whatever kind of content, passion project you wanted to, but teachers were invited then to come to your areas. Yeah. And
so people could have signed up for guitar. They could have signed up for fitness,
oil change, fitness,
how to change oil, fitness program, those sorts of things.
There's a baking one, I think.
Oh yeah, that got filled up right away.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were a little. I'll be honest, because this is the petty kind of person I am. I watched the sign-ups, and ours did not fill up super quickly. So we were a little further down the pecking order.
We kind of felt like there were going to be some reluctant writers on this one.
Yeah. And we did more than just D&D. We did. And it was. I love our collaborative discussions, because I think we come up with some pretty good stuff, and pulled out some collaborative board games and things that would sort of be team building.
Right. So
and
it went really well. And so in fact it went so well that people were talking about it, and people came back to us and were like, that was so much fun, blah blah blah. And so you had mentioned early in the semester about, well, maybe we should try to get like teachers into a social setting. Well, it took all semester because life just gets in the way.
Spring, so I was going to say that's when everything ramps up for you, I feel like.
It does, yeah.
And we talked to, I think it also kind of when we talked to our friends Tara and Kara, who had played the first time and were so excited about it.
Right.
And that's what sort of sparked the idea in me was, it's a shame that, because I know how easy it is to really love something like that, but I mean, Terry even told us, well, I kind of looked around, but I didn't feel comfortable joining people online. And I thought, all right, let's give them a little more of an experience. So that's kind of how this was born.
Right. And we wanted to give them a little bit of a longer session than just, I think they got 45 minutes when we were at school in January.
Which included teaching them about the game.
Yeah. Right.
So it was breakneck.
So you put out a Google form to the staff, and we did it through kind of did we angle it as this is going to be our teachers union sort of gathering, or was that one time we talked about that? I wasn't sure exactly how that kind of fell through.
All we did was got the union to announce it at a meeting. Okay. But I don't, and that was very, I think you were there, weren't you? Or because one of the folks that played one of the board games stood up and said, "You people, you have to do this. This was so much fun."
Yes.
So that was a little bit of advertising for us, and people did not sign up right. We had one of the younger teachers signed up right away. And at first I was a little scared because all right, the two that I was really doing this for have not signed up. And the other guy that told us later, oh, I really loved that, I would love to learn how to play, was not, no one was signing up. And I thought, well, okay, it's just not going to go. But then they started trickling in. And then we shut down about 2 or 3 days before we shut down. And then we got 4 or 5 more people saying, wait, I want to come.
Yes.
And fortunately, we had Mark on deck to be one of the DMs as well as the two of us. And so we ended up having, three games with 4 people in it each, which is about perfect. Really.
Yeah, it really was. Like you said, it was you, me, and Mark running games, and we put together the groups. And what was really fun about this in building the groups was that it wasn't all just teachers. We had 2 administrators.
Yes.
That signed up.
And that's, again, kind of cool connections. The assistant principal signed up and I think probably twisted the arm of the principal to come along.
Yeah.
And the assistant principal, her daughter has helped us with summer camp.
Yes.
And loves D&D. So I wasn't surprised when she signed up. And I wasn't surprised that our principal came along too, because she is always, we've mentioned her.
Yeah.
She's so supportive. And she's honest to a fault, in that she's like, none of this makes any sense to me, but it's cool you're doing it. And I can see that it, and she's genuine. She can see the benefit, but she decided, I'm going to try to figure out what this is all about.
I love that, and well, I'm sure that'll come up later. They played in your game.
Yes.
So
got my wife to do this as well.
Yes.
This is another big moment.
and the principal secretary.
Yes.
And so you had a full table of novice players.
Yes.
Never played before.
Yes.
At my table, I had Kara and Tara. They were my veteran players. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they were great in helping.
A half hour of playtime, so yeah, they knew.
Yes, yeah, that's right. And they've talked about it a lot. And then I had 2 others that were novice teachers and
novice players.
Yeah, not novice teachers, but novice players, and so it was a lot of fun. It's been a while since I've taught adults how to play Dungeons and Dragons.
And Mark had 2 couples.
Yes.
And one, each of them had one teacher, and then the teacher brought the spouse. And one couple had children who are very into D&D.
Yes.
And one couple was like, well, we just saw it on Stranger Things, and it sounds kind of cool. We thought, yeah.
Is that what they said?
Yes.
That's cool.
And so, there were little connections like that all over, which made it really fun. So yeah, before we jump in, I don't like to go out on limbs, and I did. I assumed there's a local sort of bar and grill, very family friendly, has a back room, it's perfect. And I thought, well, just no big deal. Other teacher groups have had no problem, reserving that room. So I called them a month out, and they said, oh no, that's booked. Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah.
Now what do I do?
Yeah.
And I was frantically going around, and I don't know if I just saw it or if somebody told me about it, that all of a sudden I thought, oh, wait, there is a bar and grill right around the corner from the school.
There is, yes.
And so I thought, well, we'll give that a try. And our thought was, yeah, we could play at the school, but that's not going to be as fun for people. They want to be able to relax and socialize a little bit. And just the atmosphere of a bar would be more fun.
And we did it on a Friday night.
Yeah.
So, we wanted that sort of let's get away from work kind of feel. It's people we work with, but it's away from work. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I thought I'm one of those people that just has a deep dislike for cold calling. I don't like to get on the phone and talk to somebody I've never talked to before. So I'm just going to go in there and set this up person to person. So I went in, and I went in like 5 minutes after it opened on a Saturday afternoon. So nobody was there. In fact, I went in and it was deserted. I didn't see anybody at all. But I heard something in the back room, and I'm like, oh, this is just like an adventure. You hear something in the next room. So I
you rolled well on your stealth.
The woman came out, the bartender, and she looked very puzzled, but I explained myself, and she looked at the calendar. She said, "Yeah, that'll work. I'll work. And let me take down your information, and let me talk." So she called the owner and said, "Oh yeah, that'll be great. And he'll probably call you later and get it set up." So I thought, perfect. And the space wasn't absolutely perfect, but it was good enough. There was a space where there were some tables that were a little bit isolated from the rest of the bar, and I thought, this should be just fine. And so I never heard back from the owner, and I thought, oh dear. So the day before, I went in just to double check, and that one wasn't there that day. And this rather grizzled old fellow came up and said, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, it should be on the calendar. I just scheduled D&D to come. Teacher's gonna come in. We're gonna kind of nerd out. We're gonna play some D&D." And he just looked blankly at me. And then he looked around. He said, "Oh, that should be fine." And I thought, no, we talked about this, but this gentleman clearly doesn't remember. So I said, "Okay, well, so tomorrow 6:30, that'd be okay, right?" And yeah, if it was Saturday, it wouldn't, because we got a birthday party in here, so no. And I was like, oh, that does not sound good. So I was fretting about this whole thing, and I had, when I stopped to think about it, I thought, these are our friends, these are our colleagues. If something weird happens here, they're not going to blame me, and it's going to be no big deal. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But I kind of ran to you and said, "I'm getting there early." And you were good enough to come early, and Mark came early. Yeah. And long story short, we got in there. And the gentleman that I talked to was actually just a patron. He wasn't even.
Oh, no.
And he was there again. Oh. But the owner was there and was much more cogent than that gentleman, who was very friendly, but not entirely sure of where he was, I think, by that point. So anyway, got it all set up. They seemed to be glad to have us. The bar never got crowded. As you noted, it probably was a Saturday night bar.
Yeah, when you were telling me about those, your nerves on Friday, I had done some reconnaissance a couple weeks prior and just did some drive-bys. And on Friday nights, it doesn't seem to be much of a Friday night establishment. Always cars there, but the parking lot never full. But Saturdays is when that place hops. But it worked well. It worked well.
Yeah. So anyway, one other thing that you had brought up that we could talk about that we used in January and used again was we did simplify the game.
Yes.
As far as the stat sheet, the character sheets. And my thought was we just want to get them in and playing as quickly as possible.
Right.
Which, I mean, you can do with the regular sheet. But I thought that could be, particularly for my group, I thought that would be off-putting.
Got it.
All of these different things to search and find.
Sure, right.
So,
well, it takes. That's what I was going to say about these sheets is the time it takes when new people are working off of a full character sheet.
Yes.
What skill is that? Oh, it's over here by your abilities, and kind of go down. All the explanation. There was almost no explanation on the character sheets that you would put together. They could find everything. Sometimes it was just a reminder.
So, yes, I'm sure if I dug around online, I could have found something that was much nicer put together, but I just went ahead and just kind of did it.
It worked wonderfully. That's all I'll say. I don't know that you could find a better one than that because it was very simple.
So they had their AC, they had hit points, they had the modifiers for their stats, not the numbers, just the modifiers.
Right.
And then I bolded, okay, each turn you can do each of these things. So I had action, movement, bonus, reaction of that. And then for the spellcasters, then there was a separate sheet that said, okay, cantrips, unlimited, boom, boom, boom.
Right.
And then the spells for each. We just had, I think I stopped them at second level spells.
Yeah. And what I liked that you did was you didn't use the descriptions of the spells from the book. You just put it into language. What does the spell do? This one shoots fire from your fingers. It fans out in a cone shape. And you put little just personal notes on there that I thought was It just made it very, very simple for people to understand. Vicious Mockery, I can't remember what you wrote, but it was really, really good. Because we really had fun with that one.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I want to hear about that. You've not told me about, so I'm curious to hear about that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So we thought we'd just kind of talk you through each of our games because they were pretty fun.
Yeah.
I guess we could just start by saying Mark ran a game from Candlekeep, and we heard lots of laughter and excited chatter from that table. We didn't really have a chance to know too much of what went on, but I do know that after the game, I heard people from his group sharing stories with our groups.
Yeah. What I could see, because I was closer to them, you were on the far table, I was in the middle, and then Mark's table, and I was facing Mark's table. And lots of great nonverbal that you would hope to see. People leaning in, people throwing themselves back, and laughter or like hands in their head like, no! So there was a lot of good interplay at that table. And I know he took the first Candlekeep adventure and just really, I think even took a piece out of that and just made a quick little, I think we played a little over 2 hours.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be 2, but I think all of our games went about 2:15.
Yeah.
So we were really close.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think his game was really successful, but probably the most important is to note that he took a published adventure and modified it down to fit into the 2 hours. Mm-hmm. So I thought that went really well. I took a published world of Eberron and put together just a quick little kind of a heist type of situation where agents of one of the countries had gotten secrets that they were going to take back to their country to change the war and things like that. And so these characters were hired as mercenaries to go on and steal those notes and the research back. There was a little twist in that the ship had already been commandeered by Warforged. So that kind of threw the players for a loop when they got on expecting humans, and it was Warforged creatures.
Oh, nice.
When they got on the ship, Kira, who had been in your original adventure, and just for time's sake, there was a great moment in your game in January where one of the players at your table seduced another character and just threw everybody for a loop. So I think Kara wanted to have a little fun with that and give that a shot. And so this guy that's trying to block them from going onto the ship, he's nervous. He has a little bit of information for them. And to get him to talk, she did a little seduction and took him off of his game, and were able to get a little bit of information that they needed and get onto the ship. So
she was playing a bard.
She was playing a bard, and she played the bard really well because without going step by step through the adventure, they were trying to talk to the captain, Warforged captain, but they knew that they needed to get to the captain's quarters and didn't want him to know that. So she's like, well, I'm going to dance and sing and distract him. And I said, okay. I said, so here's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to do a performance roll. You know how to do that. And I said, but I'm going to take it a step further. I need you to tell me what song you're singing. And we had already, there's a clue for a puzzle a little bit later on that has to do with cats. And so the captain kept repeating, cats have 9 lives, and laughing and arguing and all that kind of stuff. And so they're like, something with cats here. So then everybody at the table was brainstorming songs with cats in them. Cat Scratch Fever, Memories from Cats, and all these. And I wish I could remember the first one she did because it was great. But so she rolled a performance check, got a lovely roll of over 20, and she had the song, and she started singing the song. And and I'm like, well, the captain has fallen for it. He is completely distracted. And so they snuck off and to search. But this is the part that cracked me up. Everybody knows, I thought, well, maybe not people that don't play D&D, never split the party. Oh. Well, that's the first thing they did after they... So the bard is up on the quarterdeck with the captain dancing and singing, keeping him distracted. 2 of them then went to the captain's quarters, and 2 of them went below deck. I was like, oh boy. Okay, well, they're going to learn this rookie mistake really fast. But long story short, they got it. So they had a fight. So up on top, you got the captain being entertained. On the captain's quarters, there were 2 Warforged in there that attacked them immediately. So those 2 got in big trouble. And then down below, they heard conversations, kind of got cold feet, and they went back upstairs, luckily for everybody, because then they caught that fight that was going on. And so they helped out. Again, your character sheets, the simplified version of the character sheets, made combat run smoothly.
Okay.
The details of combat were not important this day. It was more about roll the dice. Yes, you hit. Roll your damage. Awesome. That's great. The great fun was when Drew had a killing shot, and he rolled a critical, and the thing was about, was bloodied already. And I looked at Drew and I said, well, you hit and you defeated it, but how do you want it to look? I said, think movies. And his eyes just got big. He's like, okay, let's see. And he kind of did the motions with his hands and his sword. And he said, I wanted to go sliding from shoulder to hip and blah, 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 blah. And I said, it's like, because Kara's son is a baseball player. And so I said, it's like a baseball player when they hit a home run and it's that sweet spot. Your sword hit the sweet spot and it went all the way down. And since Warforged are wooden and iron and not like gooey organs and blood and stuff, I said, you slice it. It looks down as its body slides off of the torso and it falls to the ground. And they were just like, oh, yes. And I'm like, I am playing with a bunch of teenagers right now. They had such a ball with that. So they take care of that. The captain eventually did hear the battle. And so they had to do some more distraction. I don't remember. They did a switcheroo of players and then got him distracted to the point where he really just sort of, he really became kind of a non-entity for one reason or another. So they went down to where they found the room that had the plans, but the plans are protected by a locked door, a magically locked door that has no handles, but they found a keyhole in it. So out of a book, I wish I could remember the book. It's Traps and, I think it's like Traps and Locks or Traps and Puzzles. It's one of those series of books by Jeff Ashworthy, and I found a really fun, challenging puzzle in there. But I'm like, I'm working with adults. They're smart adults. They're teachers. I'll have multiple, areas of expertise in there. It'll be great. And so it dealt with they found this brazier in the middle of a room that had a dead cat inside of it, and so all of the hints that I had mentioned throughout, from the captain saying cats have 9 lives, and there's another saying that another Warforged dropped of, life is a heart. And they thought, because they're Warforged, there's no heart in a Warforged, so they thought it had something to do with that, but it had to do everything with this puzzle. And so underneath the dead cat's paw is a little package about the size of a person's hand. And when I pulled the package out of my bag and put it on the table, they just thought that was so, they're like, what? And Drew decided to be the one to pull it out from us. So I handed it to Drew and he's like, oh, and everyone's like, what? And so he unwraps it. And so there's the clue that they have to, so he read the clue to everybody. And then there's a deck of cards in there and they have to figure out what to do with the deck of cards, how to get the key. I took a couple pictures and everybody at the table, their head were in their hands and they were thinking and their eyes were closed. And one of them was sitting with their hands like together, like they were praying. It's a great photo. It looks like a family sitting around before dinner, but nobody looks comfortable or at peace. They're all like in consternation of trying to figure out this puzzle. It was my favorite part of the night. And to my pleasure, I didn't have to really drop any suggestions. Cool. All I did was when they said something that was close, I just gave them a nod, and that's all I needed to do. And if it was an experienced group, I wouldn't have done that. But we had 2 hours. We were having fun. I didn't want this to ruin the night, not being able to figure out a puzzle. But they were doing a great job, and they were saying the right things. I'm like, that sounds good. Yep, that sounds good. And so they'd say something like they had to throw the heart ace through 9 into the cauldron while it was burning. And so they pulled all the hearts out, and they were like, and they threw a face card in. And I said, the fire starts to die down. And like, oh, no. We don't want it to die. And so they're like, okay, we can't put those cards in. And that's when they figured out ace through 9 lives. And it was just fun. When each time they threw a card into the middle of the table, they got more and more excited. And the cat pops out, and the cat hurls a key out. And I wish I had this in my mind, and I didn't do it. I wanted there to be a carpet in that room, and I wanted to say the cat makes a beeline to the carpet and hurls right out. But I didn't think of that fast. I had it in my head, but I just didn't say it. But anyway, so the key comes out, the cat disappears, and they get the plans. And then you guys, your games hadn't finished yet. That was where I was planning on finishing it. So then we did a little bit of a chase on the ships. Another ship had come upon them, and they're like, we got to get, like, we don't want the ship to board us and all that. And so I had different people go to different parts of the ship, and they made skill checks to do certain things.
Okay.
Like one person was navigating, the other person was driving, one person was trying to encourage the elemental to go faster and to like burn brighter. And to their luck, the character that did it before, when they first got on the ship, went to the elemental to kind of try to investigate it. And I'd mentioned, you see a face in there that's looking at you with utter hatred and all of that. And so he was like, I'll go to the elemental. I've kind of created a relationship with it. And I was like, he's getting advantage on his roll. That was awesome that he thought of that and that he had done that. And so they outraced it. They got to the capital city, and I gave them a chance to try to crash the thing, but they rolled too well, and so they landed nicely. And when you guys were finishing up, we had a nice finish, and they, so it was a good time.
I got to ask, did the bard try vicious mockery at all?
I'm sorry, yes. And so I said, because it was in the battle in the captain's quarters, she wasn't quite sure what spell to do, and so I just put my hand over by the character sheet and I pointed to vicious. I said, this one you can do all the time. Oh, yeah, okay. And I said, but like the song, you have to have something to say. And so, what did she say? She said something about, you're just nothing but a hairball fluffy or something like that. And I was like, okay, that's enough for me. I don't know, but she did say something about them being soulless, and that really made him mad, but she did max damage on it. So once she realized how that worked, she had some fun with that. And so vicious mockery was a good one to have.
Well, I don't think I can follow up that.
Oh, no, you can. I know you can. I heard you guys back there.
Well,
at one point I almost turned around and said, settle down, everybody. Just settle down.
Well, these are 4 intelligent, no-nonsense professional women.
Yes.
And I'll be honest, I was a little bit, I didn't know how it was going to go because fantasy is probably not in the wheelhouse. But
fair.
They jumped in, and from the first, they instinctively knew, like, and my wife told me later, well, it was a problem to solve, a puzzle to solve immediately. And so we were looking at, every clue you gave us. And they were like, from the very beginning, the principal was like, well, do we trust this person? This person's, what do we think? Do we want to, and so I said, well, you're the cleric. We need someone with good wisdom to see if you think they're telling the truth. And she rolled a 20 on her first, And,
what a way to start.
Oh, is that good? Is that good? Yes, that is very good. And so it was fun to mess with them a bit because I kept it very bare bones D&D 101. Mm-hmm. You're a group of adventurers, mercenaries. You've had some luck, rescuing some hostages, stealing some artifacts. You've heard that there's this small town kind of out in the woods where someone is offering 25 gold pieces each for something. And that sounds like a lot of money for such a small town. So that's where you're heading. And so they first, on the path, they meet a wealthy merchant who tells them, oh, it's fine, but things are a little odd in the forest. I would definitely stay on the path. Don't leave the path. And I set it up that it would be a real choice because there could be some benefit to leaving. There could be some risk to leaving. Okay. So they'd have to decide. And, so they interacted with this person and then went on their way. And so the strangeness, the backstory, the full story that I'd created very quickly was there's been some sort of a pop-up portal that sucked a bunch of fae into this region between where they were and the village.
Okay.
And so they go in and they have the first thing they see is they're walking on the narrower path through this part of the forest that might be a little bit dodgy. They find a hastily constructed box on a tilted stake, and handwritten very inexpertly is "pay toll here." And so they debate whether they should or not. And they're looking around and using the mage hand to like smack the bushes to see if they see it. I'm like, that's pretty smart.
That's good.
And so that was really fun. And then they decided, no, we're not putting any money in. Oh. So they go on. And so I said, you know how you see those signs in the Midwest as you go along the highway that's like, Jesus saves, repent, or don't take my guns, or whatever it is. Right. So I said, you see a series of signs that say, go back, pay toll, or face the wrath of death stab. And so they were like, and so they're kind of going forward, and so they didn't. They're like, well, that's too far back. We're not, no. And so they go forward and they sit down. So death stab is a sprite, and I probably should have done a stealth against their passive perception or whatever, but I thought, no, this is theater and I'm exercising DM privilege. Yep. So our assistant principal who played the fighter, I said, you're on watch. They decided who was on watch and each section of the night. So I said, okay, I need all you guys to roll die. And okay, who was lowest? And then they're all scared. I said, okay, you feel a sharp pain in your side and you take 1 point of damage. And he's like, all right, we're getting up. We're getting out of here. And so at that point, then I really played it up. And I said, you hear mocking laughter from the trees above you. And you hear a voice say, you should have paid your toll. And they were just mad right out of the gate. So they're like, can we shoot a fireball up there? And I said, well, you don't really see anything to hit. So they put dancing lights up there. And then I said, okay. So immediately after that, it was the wizard did that. I said, you see 4 balls of light just like that floating around you. And you hear a voice say, I can do it too. And so they're like, so they go on and another of them gets stabbed. And then they're just like, we're out of here. And so then I had them, so they move forward, they walk through the rest of the night, and in the morning I had a dryad come out of a tree and apologize and say, so sorry about that. I think, I'm sorry for the death stab. And I used some language just because I knew it'd catch him off guard, so he's kind of and they were laughing at that, Mr. Ream said a bad word. And so she offered him wine, and they were not going to drink it.
Oh, no.
And she said, we'd love to feast you, and we're not supposed to leave the path. And I said, okay. So eventually I had a satyr jump down and drink it all, and mock them and all that sort of thing. And so if they had gone off with the dryad, they would have gotten a charm that could have helped them a little bit later in a fight that was coming.
All right.
But they didn't. And so as they left, the dryad says, well, I'll just warn you, not all fae are good. And I left it at that. So they come into the town, they meet their contact, and he tells them, well, I did a couple things. Like they went into the bar and they're like, where's Loris Silvertooth? And so I said, they're a little surprised at you, but they point the way. And so I forget which one of them was like, well, that was kind of rude. Should we pay him something for that? Or let's have a drink. Let's sit down and drink and have a meal. So they did that. And I had a character I heard him say, I said, you hear some people on the other side of the room say, oh, it's a blue moon. What's a blue moon? Well, it's the second full moon of the month. Oh, okay. I said, a man next to you gets up and leaves. And you notice that he left most of his food and his drink. And it was so funny because it was actually the secretary that works for the principal, assistant principal. She goes, he's a werewolf. Like, oh my gosh, you figured that out quick. So he's a misdirect. He's not the bad guy, but I want him to think he was.
Right.
So they go to their contact's house, and so the whole story is children have gone missing. And I purposely kind of designed this because we got 4 moms.
Yep.
I thought, I want them buying in.
Nice.
I said, they come back. And so he brings his own daughter out, and she's just kind of dull and catatonic and can hardly talk. He said, they come back, but, this is after she's recovered. They come back, they can't talk at all. They're just, we don't know and my daughter, she used to sing, and she can hardly talk now. Can you help us? And so they're like, yeah, all right, we're on it. So they go back, and they ask around at the inn, and I threw down one more clue. The mayor was there. She's a very warm, friendly woman, and the barkeep says something about, well, you went missing too, Triona. You were, and she's like, oh, I drank a little too much. I had to sleep that off for a couple days, so I left it at that. But she had been, and so they were like, all right, we got to go. It's this werewolf. We got to go figure him out. And by that time, we were running short on time. Okay. Because they were very methodical. And so they went to his house, and I didn't even pretend that they had to, they heard him snuffling inside, and they come in, and he basically says, don't come in. I don't want to eat you. I'm not, just don't, please don't. And so he knows, so they're like, well, we know you go into that forest, and that's where all the kids are disappearing. Yes, I've been to that forest. It's strange. There's mist there. There's never been mist before. There's something strange going on. I found a child's doll in the woods, but it's not me. I'll take you there in the morning. So he let him, and so then you talk about rookie mistakes. I said, well, there's a rope bridge across a gorge that you're going to have to cross, and you can see a cave up, and the mist appears to be kind of emanating from that. So, okay, we'll cross. So you're all crossing? Yep. Right, it breaks.
Of course.
What? So, but it was kind of cool because the wizard is like, wait, I've got levitate. And so I said, all right, you can pick one to levitate and not take the damage. And so they picked the cleric because they need her to keep him healthy.
Yes. Smart.
So that was pretty cool. So anyway, they go into the hag's cave, and this is where I made a little bit of a misstep because I described all of the strange and goofy and somewhat evil things in there, and I said, well, you see a mobile composed of small femurs and tibias, and our principal's like, I don't like this story anymore.
Oh.
And so I was like, oh shoot, I dialed it a little too high. So as they're kind of looking, I said, well, you're very wise, you're a cleric, you're concerned about that. You can see those are not human. Okay. So anyway, they find a hidden door, but they have to solve the riddle to be able to get through it.
Okay.
And they do. Like I set it out for them, and then I said, I'm going to go get myself a beer. So you sort it out. Yeah. And by the time I got back, they had it.
Oh, nice.
I think I pointed out, you might want to look at these lines rather than these lines, but that's all it took.
Okay.
So I sat down, and my wife actually looked, and I think she solved it of the 4 of them, and said the word, and I said, the door opens. Yay! So they were all excited. And the funny thing was, our principal, the one who is probably the least invested, about an hour and 15 minutes, she's like, when are we going to fight something? Oh. I thought we were going to fight something. So, nice. So anyway, the door opens magically back to I said, it looks like you're inside one of the village cottages, and there are some children that are in a cage. So they are like, oh, we better get them. So they walk through, and so I have the mayor open the door at the other side of the room and come through and say, I kind of like a chick fight. I said, and she turns into this. And so I had an image of a hag,
oh, nice.
a green hag. And they're like, oh, so then the fight starts.
Cool.
And our principal is like, well, I'm just going to walk up and get her. And so, and so she does, but then she's in melee, and my very first attack, I critted. So I fudged things just a tiny bit because I didn't want them to be too upset. But it took all but 4 of her hit points, very first hit.
Oh.
So, and then I decided she had a ring that with a bonus action, she created a bunch of dust methods, kind of cannon fodder they can fight.
Sure.
But then the wizard cast Shatter and killed 3 out of the 4 of them. Like,
oh, wow.
Boom.
Nice.
Like that. So that was
use
fun.
of that.
So it was fun. So the battle kind of went from there. And they were very, and they, once I started using language, they started using language. So, we're going to beat this.
Gave some permissions.
So the assistant principal was, which I could see her being like this anyway. She was not having it. She was like coming in hard and just swinging and swearing. And so
cool.
it was fun. So
cool.
Yeah, I think they had a good time.
Well, good. So speaking of having a good time, what were some reactions that you had at your table when it was all said and done, packing up?
So what I noticed, it was fun. I don't know that any of the people that any of these women are like converts. I don't know that any of them are like, oh, I can't wait to play again.
Yeah.
But all of them are like, oh, I get it. And it was fun because somebody from your group came over to talk to the principal.
Okay.
And I heard him, and the principal right away is like, what happened in your story? And I know she likes to read novels, so she really was into the story. And they said, oh, well, we were really focused on this is a puzzle to be solved. Let's get it done. And I said, well, yeah, that's fine. That is a perfectly legitimate way to play this game. Or you could, I said, I didn't give you much opportunity to, but you could develop a whole character. And I mentioned to him, you'd come back with the same character, and as you do this, it improves, it gets stronger, it has new, and they're like, oh, okay. So it clicked for all of them just in a really fun way. Like I felt good about the job I'd done because I thought, I feel like I represented the game well, that they understand it, they appreciate it, they see the strengths. So that was probably the main takeaway I had.
Well, congratulations. At my table, Tara and Kara are already believers. They had a great time. That's what they shared with me, that it was tons of fun. Tara got the barbarian that she wanted and had a lot of fun with hitting things and things like that. Drew, when I said, did you have a good time? He was, this was awesome. He was bought in. And so I was really excited about that because I would love to see him somehow involved in our game club someday if that fits into his schedule. But he seemed to really have a good time. I think that he would come back if we did this again. And my last player is an art teacher and was a little bit more not so sure about it coming in. She was asked to come in by one of the players at my table. And so she came out of that request. And she said to me, she goes, I really didn't know if I would have fun or not, but this was actually quite a bit of fun to do this. And so I felt good about that, that maybe there wasn't some, I'm here to support a friend, but ended up having a good time as well.
You had one more comment from somebody from Mark's table too.
I said, we were the tables are kind of just talking. And I said, well, we'll do this next year. And one of the people said, why so long? Why don't we, can we play sometime this summer? And so it's like, all right, let's play again.
Can't ask for more than that.
Let's play again. That's what it's all about. And so everybody walked away with smiles on their faces, had a good time. Was a well-spent Friday night in a place that I'd never been before. I love that this tavern has it's its front door is actually a garage door that just opens up.
Yes.
I mean, it's not a garage door, but it's built like a garage door.
It is.
And they had the back door open, and so there's a nice breeze coming through. It was a lovely venue at all said and done.
And that's one last thing. When we kind of stood around a little longer and talked, and one of the bar patrons came up.
I heard this. I wasn't
Mark
part of it.
And to me and said, what was this? And Mark said D&D, and I said Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, I've heard about that. Well, how does it work? And you're like, oh, how do I talk about that? How do I
elevator speech?
Say, how do I do this in one sentence? So, but he listened, and we did it. I think we did a pretty good job. And he was like, oh, that sounds cool. Because I got a friend that does it. And I said, oh, yeah, it's a lot of fun. So
cool.
It was neat. And I didn't expect, I guess in my irrational mind, I was a little concerned about whether people would be like, what are you guys doing here? But everybody that took notice of us seemed to be just very curious and encouraging and
interested curiosity.
Yeah.
I was thinking that we would probably get some disapproving looks, and I didn't feel like we got any.
No.
From the patrons, and I think they just worked around us.
Yeah.
And they, like you said, they were interested in what we were doing, but kept their distance and just sort of watched from time to time. So it was just a really fun experience. And me, I see something and I'm like, what if? And all I could think was, and I know this is not a novel idea, but in this location, if the owner was the owner there?
He was.
Okay,
yes.
So he was there. I was like, what if we went back to him and said, you want to do a D&D night and invite patrons to come and we'll teach them how to play D&D. And do like a bar D&D. I don't know. It might get a little crazy, but who knows? I mean, I know places do that.
We could, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, this could be like a community goodwill kind of thing. And
could charge them $5 or $10 and just to the bar.
Yeah, to go to the bar, and who knows? But anyway, that's a what if.
$10 and your first drink's free.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Anyway, so that's I think definitely we've got a group of teachers that would want to come back and do this again, and may bring other people, because I mean, we had I think I counted we had 12 staff members and then the 3 of us. And we teach at a school that's much larger than that.
Yes.
And so I think when word gets out,
the word is spreading. Well, this was I could name 4 or 5 other people that said, "Oh, I would come. I'm just out of town."
Right.
So
yeah.
And it's all for the. I mean, just there's so many sort of positive check marks. I mean, it does build sort of camaraderie.
It does.
And it does build awareness so that when we talk about our game club, more and more people are going to be like, oh, yeah, I know about that. And community awareness and everything else. And I'm excited to incorporate this experience into our discussion at our Express conference coming up in July. So that's a nice segue to, hey, if you are a teacher adjacent, whatever, and you haven't signed up yet, please, we'll leave the link.
Yeah.
There's space left, but by the time this is published, there'll be about a week left of the early bird rate. So we are going to kind of talk you through, in a way, it'll be designed to whatever you want it to be, but anything from how do you build a club, how do you do a summer camp, how do you get teachers involved, how do you integrate this into the classroom. It's going to have it all.
All of that. And
in 2 days.
And the thing that we really liked about this and why it seemed like the right thing to do is because you get to see our actual summer camp in progress. The first day of our summer camp is the last day of the Express conference. And so you'll spend a lot of time observing the camp and the players and their interactions and their workshops and things like that. So you get a feel for the the investment in students in the middle of a summer, the excitement and the happiness and the joy that it brings them and the friendships it brings. But then also you'll be able to witness and see the learning that's happening, which is, the fun and all of that is great, but the learning is what makes it all worthwhile. And so, so I hope if you've been thinking about it, we hope that this is an opportunity for you to sort of step over the line and say, let me learn a little bit more about this.
Yes. And network.
Right. Yes, we should have teachers from around the state and
possibly beyond.
And possibly beyond to talk to and share secrets or concerns and be able to talk those kinds of things out with each other.
Share secrets.
Yeah, share secrets. Secrets. Tips. Secrets. Well, it is Dungeons and Dragons. There's a secret behind every door. Every door. So anyway, well, thank you so much for joining us for this little ride that we took last night with our staff, and it worked out really well. If you've done something like this, or if you're interested in doing something like this, let us know. Send us an email, teachersinthedungeon@gmail.com, and we'd love to start that discourse with you. If you have comments or questions, we'd love to answer those here on the show to tell you sort of the logistics or whatever it is that you're interested in. So that takes care of today's show. We will delve into the dungeon. I will get my homework done. We'll dive into the dungeons next week and get back to business that way. So for Dan Ream, I'm Tom Gross, and until next week, keep rolling those 20s.